Let's see what kind of money I've got in here today. $100, $200, $300, $400, I got $500 here. All jokes aside, my friends, it is a good year to get into the world of keeping chickens. I've got my little treats here. I've got my hens. They're a little scared. I think they think that I'm some sort of great giant coming down from above to tackle them, but once they get into it, they get into it. So in today's video, I'm gonna run you through a complete starter guide to getting started with chickens, everything you need to know, dispelling some myths, correcting some beliefs, and also getting into a little bit of a discussion about cost and regulations. So join me in the epic thickies, and let's get into it. First, I want to dispel a few chicken keeping myths. The first and probably most pervasive is that if you keep chickens, you're gonna have a really stinky, sloppy yard. And that's really just not the case. If you keep chickens well, have the right coop set up, the right litter set up, and the right sort of outdoor run, and you don't really mess around too much with giving them too much food at once, for example, they really aren't a dirty animal. Yeah, they kick some dust up here and there, but it's not that big of a deal, and they bring a whole lot of joy to your house as well. Monsters. The next thing is that you don't need a rooster to get eggs. In fact, this is probably something that a lot of us as kids, if you didn't grow up with animals, it's probably what a lot of us thought is that, oh, you need a rooster to get the egg. It's actually not true. The eggs that you're eating when you go to the grocery store are just unfertilized eggs that hens will drop every 24 to 26 hours in peak season when they're younger hens. Another myth or sort of misconception is that some hens can be quite loud, or chickens can be quite loud. And although Butter is a bit of a prima donna, aren't you? You're kind of a loud little bird. Sometimes they will get a little noisy when they're doing their egg song, when they're about to lay, ooh, or for very particular reasons. Looks like they just had a little bit of a scuffle right there. Wow. I haven't seen that in a long time. Girls, chill. Great example right there of when a hen will get a little bit loud, when they're squawking or fighting with one another a little bit, trying to establish themselves in the pecking order, or when they are distressed in some way or laying an egg. Besides that, it's just little chicken noises here and there that kind of blend into the background of daily life. Another misconception is how much work chickens take. They really don't take that much work. You have to collect daily eggs. You do need to make sure the coop and litter is clean to some degree, but there's techniques that you can use to mitigate that. And then you really just have to make sure you water and feed them, both of which can be automated, and I'll talk about how to do that. Another interesting fact is that chickens, like our little girl Rufio right here, they do not lay eggs every single day. Like I said, a young hen in summer will probably lay roughly one a day, maybe 24 to 26 hours or so. In the winter, that starts to fall off. You can go a couple days sometimes without getting eggs. And then as a hen gets older, they also will stop laying. So for the first 3-4 years, they lay relatively consistently. And after that, they do start to slow down and actually completely stop as they get older. So you have to have, Lobster just came over and said, don't disclude me from that. You do have to have a plan for your hens as they get older, whether you're raising meat birds. I personally am not with these hens, or maybe you want to keep them as pets at that point in time. One of the more interesting facts for me, I actually learned about chicken eggs was in New Zealand when I was on a traveling trip, and I noticed that flats and flats of eggs, like hundreds of eggs at a time, were just kind of sitting out at the grocery store completely unrefrigerated. And I inquired and I said, you know, what's going on here? Don't these have to be stored in the fridge? And they looked at me like I was crazy. And the truth is that if you are harvesting your own eggs from your own hens, as long as you don't wash them, they don't have to be stored in the fridge for at least 2 weeks or so. That's because there's this natural bloom, which is sort of this protective coating around the eggshell that means that it is completely sealed off. Now, if you wash it, that's a different story. You'd be washing that bloom off and you'd be lowering the shelf life of them. So if you wash, you do have to put in the fridge, but it's really nice. You can store them in like a really cool looking egg holder out on the counter, and you don't have to worry about refrigeration. Last couple facts here. Number one, you will not start and end with the same amount of chickens that you thought you would. Chicken math, as it's called, is a real thing. Now, somehow I've avoided chicken math so far, as the 6 hens that I started with, like Butter here. Come on up here, Butter. Come on here, lab. The 6 hens I started with are the ones that I still have, but guys, I'm planning on adding 3 more hens, maybe 4, to the coop this year. So don't beat yourself up if you just keep getting more chickens. It's very natural, and as I said, with the egg production and maturity of chickens, you actually might want to start adding more to your flock so that your egg production stays consistent. And then finally, you can have chickens in way hotter and colder climates than you actually think. They are able to tolerate those at a much higher level than most people think, but you do have to make some considerations for their coop design, the ventilation, and the insulation if you are in one of those climates. Let's talk now about the primary considerations for getting into the world of chickens, because it's not as simple as just buying some of these little cuties and getting in the game. You have to figure out, can you get in the game? And what I mean by that is some cities and some states, etc., they just don't allow for it. So you need to figure out if regulations allow you to keep chickens in the first place. Sometimes the answer is yes, but you have to jump through a couple different hoops, jump through those hoops, and then move on to the next step. Now, in my particular area, fortunately, I am allowed to keep chickens. Maybe I'd still be doing it if I wasn't, but that's another story. But what you need to figure out is, okay, maybe you can, but there's still some regulations on how far the coop has to be away from the side of the house, how many you can have, can you have a rooster, can you not have a rooster? Almost every jurisdiction is probably gonna limit roosters in some kind, or a hen that acts like a rooster, like Gucci here. But you need to check that, because the last thing you wanna do is have someone come inspect or have a neighbor that gets angry. Turns out you are not in a permitted or well-regulated area, so you get in trouble and you gotta give up your hens. Let's head inside the run to talk about space requirements next, which is one of the most important things before you get some hens. We're gonna talk about the hen house in a minute, but right now I'm standing in the indoor covered run where they got their water bar and their feeder, and we need to talk about space. This is one of the things that a lot of us really do feel a moral obligation to provide, especially when you don't have chickens and you just go to the grocery store and you buy eggs. You're looking for that pastured hen. Why? Because they have the most space, and that space is of the highest quality. So if you're keeping hens at home, at least in my opinion, you really want to provide them with a lot of space. And for an outdoor run, or basically any sort of run area that is not the coop itself, ideally you want to be providing at least 10 square feet per chicken. So for my 6 hens, I would like to have a 60 square foot outdoor indoor combination run. So it could be any mix of those. It could be fully out, fully in, as long as it is separate from the hen house. So in this case, this is a 6 foot by 18 foot covered indoor run, and that is well over 100 square feet. So it's a bit over double what I would need for 6 hens at the absolute bare minimum. Why this is so important is, number one, it's good for animal welfare. They're gonna be annoyed by each other less. There'll be less fights like we just saw a little bit ago. And you're also just gonna have more area for them to explore, stimulate their minds, forage, get some different types of protein in their body, dig for grubs, that kind of thing. So more space, the better. But we do have to talk about the actual hen house now too. Here we are on the back side of the coop at the hen house, and we can see Gucci is curious. She wants to know what's going on. So here is where the hens are going to roost at night. I have these 2 roost bars right here. As a rule of thumb, you want about a square foot of roost bar per hen. So these are 6 feet long. So in theory, I could house 12 hens in here, but the other consideration is you want roughly 3 to 5 square feet of total roosting and hen house space per hen as well. So this is about 6 foot by 4 foot, 24 square feet. Divide that by about, I don't know, 4 or so, and I could have 6 hens. Now, I do have the completely covered indoor run here that we were just at, which means that I can probably have a few more hens in here since they have so much space both in and outdoors. And then I've got my little egg hutches right here that kind of gives a little bit of extra space. But this is kind of what you want, and you do want some level of ventilation going on. Over here I have 3 different windows. Of course, this coop is kind of deluxe. And then what you can do here as well is open a vent door without actually opening the hen house. So in the summer, I can open this up and keep them nice and vented. You can see these hens are very curious. They always want to know what I'm up to. Guys, I'm just talking about how to best care for you, okay? So it's all good. The final thought I have for you on overall coop sizing is it's kind of like the same thing with getting more hens. You're probably gonna get more hens. Chicken math is a real thing. Like I said, I'm gonna get probably 4 more this year. So this coop can house up to 18 relatively safely. I might want to expand the actual hen house in that case, but if I get to 10, I'm completely fine. So I bought less hens, I raised less hens than my coop could support, so I could let the chicken math do its work. Next, you need to talk about where you're getting the coop from. This is a 6 foot by 18 foot coop out of Carolina Coops. which I do believe if you're going to buy a more deluxe style coop, first of all, they make ones much smaller than this, but they're not cheap. I'll be honest with you guys, they're not cheap, but you get extremely good build quality and the best designed coop for animal welfare on the market. As you can see, the hens are loving this outdoor expansion that we have built, which was a custom little build that we put up here on the channel. But the truth is actually kind of unfortunate. And what I mean by that is that many coops at the very lower end of the price range simply aren't designed with the best animal welfare practices in place. And so you might spend 200 bucks on the coop, but the hens really aren't living their best life. And honestly, if you go over to Jacques' channel and check his garden out, his coop build was completely DIY. It was very inexpensive, but it is perfectly set up to give the hens the life that they want. And honestly, Matt from Carolina Coops went over, took a look at it, gave it a little bit of a roast, and he couldn't find much to say about it. It was a very well-designed coop. So you don't have to go extreme like I've done here. You can totally get or build coops that work really well. Now we need to talk about how do you get the chickens? Do you raise them from eggs? Do you hatch them? Do you raise them from baby chicks, pullets, which is a sort of teenager chick? Or do you just go ahead and grab hens that are ready to lay, coop ready as they're called? Lav, chill, chill, chill. Do you grab little lavenders and just plop them into your coop? Now, there's a couple schools of thought. Number one would be the pure play. That would be raising them from eggs. The problem there is that you don't know if that's going to be a male or female. Most of the time, you cannot keep roosters, and a lot of people just kind of don't want roosters. And so that's a bit of a gamble in my opinion, and it's also the most advanced level of raising hens. Now you can then go to the other side of the spectrum and get coop ready hens that are about to lay. To me, that kind of spoils some of the joy and fun of this process of getting to know your hens and raising them. So to me, I wouldn't really recommend it. Now you can go a little step down and get what are called pullets, which are probably the weirdest looking version of a hen, where they look, their feathers are coming in, they look a little scraggly, kind of like they're going through puberty, but they get a little closer to that laying age, so you don't have to kind of go through that whole raising process. But then, at least for me, I really preferred raising them from baby chicks. Most of the time, they have been sexed, meaning that there's a very high chance that they're going to be females or hens instead of roosters, so you don't have to deal with that. But then you also get the entire experience of raising hens from baby chicks, which is very satisfying. They're some of the cutest little birds you'll ever see. The only problem is you do need a bit of a setup there. So you need some kind of brooding setup, which you really need a container of some kind. You use some sort of bedding, like pine shavings is the one that we ended up using. And then you need to keep them warm, because normally they'd be hugged up right next to their mothers, but of course their mothers are not in the picture at this point. You are their mother, so you need to give them something. Now what most people will do is they'll use these heat lamps. It's kind of just like a light with a reflector that radiates heat into the brooding setup. I personally am not a big fan of that because it can cause what's called pasty butt. So when the hens poop out of their vent, it can sometimes catch on the little fluff that they've got, and then the way that the heat radiates from those heat lamps can kind of dry it out and stick the vent shut, meaning that they can't defecate anymore, which means that they can actually die from that. And so what we ended up doing with these hens, they got the best of the best. They got this little electrical heat setup that they could kind of nestle under, and we put it in the early video when we were raising the baby chicks. But to me, I would say raise them from baby chicks. It is far and away the most satisfying experience you can have with your hens. Now, if you've decided to raise, then what you can do, I'll show you a little butter here, is pick your favorite breeds. Now, what I did is I picked 2 Orpington breeds, and butter is what's called a lobster. What are you doing? You're in my shot, lobster. You're literally in my shot. So I got butter, as well as all of my other hens, from a local breeder, and she is a buff Orpington. So Orpington is a really popular beginner breed. They're very good at being mothers if you ever want to hatch from eggs. They tend to go a little broody, meaning they want to hatch an egg pretty quickly, so they can sometimes be a little annoying, but they're very friendly, loving hens, buff Orpingtons especially. Lavender over here is a lavender Orpington. I have 2 Wyandottes, a gold laced and silver laced. The gold laced is Gucci, the silver laced is Chetty, like a machete blade. That's what I named her. And then I've got a cream leg bar, which is sort of a heritage English variety. This is Rufio with the kind of weird tufted head. She's also a very thin and weird looking hen. And then I have Rhode Island Red, who I have named Lobster. Rhode Island Red's actually a mix of a meat bird and an egg-laying bird, very great variety, and kind of what you think of when you think of a chicken. But with breeds, you really want to pick based on the aesthetic, if you like a particular aesthetic, their personality type or their personality tendency. So like I said, Lavender and Butter are Orpingtons that are sort of friendly, more mellow hens, whereas the Wyandottes can be a little bit more assertive and standoffish. And then you also want to pick hens that might do better or worse based on the climate you're in. I'm in a pretty temperate climate. I can do most breeds, but some are really good for colder climates, or some are really good for hotter climates, and that's really just up to you. So I'd say browse around, do a little bit of experimentation. And the last thing is the egg color. I know that's important to a lot of people, getting an Easter egger or a blue egg or a really dark brown egg like a black copper Moran hen. To me, I didn't care so much about the egg color as I did about the unique look and personality type of my hens. But really that's the fun of choosing the breed. It's totally up to you. All right, let's talk caring for your hens. Breaking it down into daily, weekly, monthly, and maybe every 6 months to a year. Daily, really the only thing you need to do is come out, chill with them, say hi, maybe hold them, pet them a little bit, feed them some snacks, and then just collect the eggs. You don't have to do anything besides that. On a weekly basis, I would say look at their feed, see if it's running low, look at the water, see if it's running low. You might want to do a little bit of a light clean, but again, not a whole lot on a weekly basis. On a monthly basis, I think it's a good idea to come out into either the outdoor run or inside the coop and see if you need to do a more thorough clean. A lot of the times what I'll do is I'll rake up anything that they're not eating at all, and I'll throw that in the classic compost. And then I'll come out, I'll give the hens a once over, kind of give them a look, see if they're looking healthy, maybe I see any issues. And then I'll also rake flat the interior run, and I'll also give the coop, the actual bedding in the hen house, a little bit of a shake up so their droppings don't just accumulate in one spot. But you don't have to do a whole lot on a monthly basis. The only place where it gets a little bit hectic is at the 6 months to a year area, where you might need to do a full litter change out, but even that is not that big a deal. You can just shovel it out, throw it into the compost, wet it down, start that going again, and you'll be good to go. In the case of the Carolina coop, it's actually really nice because you can just flip this bottom door down and throw it all right into a wheelbarrow and you're in a good spot. And the bonus is you're kind of harvesting some really ready compost. So, you know, these girls, they do a lot. They do a lot for us, and fortunately for us, we don't have to do too much to keep them happy and healthy. Now, there are some things that your hens can fall prey to besides actual predators, which we'll go into in a different episode. This is why we have so many different protective mechanisms around the coop, so that, you know, some mammals, some predatory mammals and birds don't get them. But there are some actual diseases and stuff that they can fall prey to, like mites and bumblefoot and these sorts of things. Fortunately, both Jacques and myself haven't really dealt with that too much. The only thing we've really dealt with is a broody hen, and that would be this little girl right here, Butter, the little chubster. So she tends to go broody. She being a buff Orpington, that's kind of one of the things that they're known for. Broodiness, really though, honestly, I don't find to be that big a deal. Yes, they want to sit in the egg hutch for a while and try to hatch a non-existent egg, and they get a little annoyed if you go near them. The only thing that seems to be a problem with them going broody is that other hens, the rest of them, get a little bit annoyed when they see a broody hen. I don't know what it is, but they tend to be just a little bothered by that, and so they sometimes can peck at the hen. But I haven't even seen that. In the case of Butter, she stayed broody for maybe a month or so, and the hens just learned to use a different little slot in the egg hutch, and they were all good. I saved the best part for last, maybe the worst part for last, depending on your perspective, and that would be, how much does keeping chickens actually cost? So this is a choose your own adventure. You could spend, I mean, literally you could spend the price of a car on a coop. I've known someone who's done it. It's the most beautiful coop I've ever seen. It's actually bigger than my house, and I should just consider evolving into a chicken to see if I could live in this person's coop. Now, that's probably not realistic for almost anyone that's watching this video. And to be honest with you, the Carolina coop that I have is also a quite pricey coop at around $10,000. So you definitely don't have to do that. And if you were, you certainly aren't doing it because you're trying to get a return on investment on these beautiful girls' eggs. Even though eggs are at their most expensive point that we've seen in recent years, still, it's a little too pricey to justify it from an investment perspective. But if you're gonna do a DIY coop, I would say the cheapest you could probably get away with is about $300, $400 or so, unless you're using completely found materials and you are an expert carpenter or builder of some kind. As far as materials, you're gonna need some kind of feeder, some kind of waterer. Now you can keep this very DIY and cost $0 with certain types of buckets, or you can get a little fancier and save yourself time. Time is also money. We have the automatic water bar here. It's just water pressure that makes it automatic. And that's just a rain barrel with PVC that kind of goes up, and they have these little watering nipples and they go out from there. Then you also have a feeder that you can use. We use the Coop feeder, which actually is on our store. It is, again, it's a little bit of a pricier idea, but it can hold 2 50-pound bags of feed, which is over a month of feed for sure. And it's got 8 different feeding areas where you can just, you know, chickens can get at it. They don't have to wait their line. They don't have to get mad at each other. They can just go in and eat. Then you have the cost of the hens themselves. So these girls weren't that expensive. I didn't choose crazy breeds. Honestly, the Buff Orpington Butter over there and Lav, they both cost about, I think, $10. There are some breeds that can cost about $100. Even the most rare ones don't get over $100 or so. So they're not that expensive in terms of most pets, I suppose. But again, you know, if you're getting a lot of them, that can definitely add up. You shouldn't feel the need to get really fancy breeds. You can get $5 to $10 little baby chicks and raise them, or just get in touch with a friend. A lot of friends like to hatch them if you're starting to get into the homesteading community, and you're in a good spot. Finally, you have their feed. Now, I'm probably spending $50 on their feed right now because I give them so many treats. Ah, that actually hurts. But you know, feed can be about 50 cents to $2 a pound right now. It's getting a little bit more expensive, mostly because I think everything in the world of chicken keeping is getting more expensive. But it really depends. I mean, chickens will eat about 1.5 pounds a week of feed, but it depends on how much you're growing and giving them. Uh-oh, did you get in there? Maybe. If you're growing a lot in the garden and giving them a lot of scraps and food scraps, that will skew downwards and you'll have to buy in less feed, but you don't want to give them no chicken feed, because chicken feed is formulated specifically for their nutritional needs, as well as their ability to lay eggs, calcium in there, all that kind of stuff. So you're gonna wanna make sure and actually get some chicken feed. We use a company called Grubblies, which we really, really like. Actually hoping to have it carried on our store here at some time in the near future. But for now, you can just check the link out. But yeah, I mean, look, if you look at it only on a feed basis, even at the highest end of feed, based on all the math, which I won't do off the top of my head here, but it ends up being roughly $2.50 per dozen of eggs if you are paying just for the feed. But of course, all the other costs that I talked about also have a huge, huge factor. So, I mean, really in the end, are you doing this to save money? It's not really about that. It's about the animal welfare benefits. If you want to have these beautiful creatures around, hanging out with them, getting some nice peace and quiet, and maybe a little bit, sometimes less peace and quiet. If you want higher quality eggs, there's no higher quality than grown in your backyard with the stuff that is foraged around your backyard. It's simply just way better. And it's just the psychological benefits and the overall quality of life improvements that having these beautiful creatures around give you. So this was our primer guide, a little off the cuff guide on getting started with hens this year. So if you want anything else, drop it down here. We'll do more chicken episodes here on the Homesteading channel. Until next time, I'm gonna hang out with my girls a little bit more. I'll see you soon. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.